Okay, we are live now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Underarm Cricket Podcast. This is episode 4. We are a group of friends from Wichita State University. We are missing a buddy here, Bhargav Shastri. Here's Surya and Vatsal Maru joined with us. And we would like to discuss on the topics that we have covered so far and also the more about the Indian cricket in this episode, especially which are things related to the build up to the Cricket World Cup 2023 and also the IPL. So, Vatsal, tell me.
Hey, nice to be back. Welcome everybody. Yeah, you're right. We're missing a buddy. I think hopefully he'll be back next week. We'll have more data perspective from him. Couple points which we want to make before we start, sort of like a housekeeping. You would start seeing increased statistical analysis from our side. Why statistical analysis? Because we have access now to certain data sets where we can perform statistical analysis. We are not big on just data. There is a reason behind that, because if you throw numbers to somebody's face, what's going to happen is it would not have the context, and therefore analysis matters, right? It has to extract information from the data to say something. Conclusions have to match with the reality of context. We have to pose a question, and for that we can find the answers. To do that, I think we need to perform analysis, and you would be seeing a lot more analysis. We are not much in favor just throwing random numbers. Hey, this is his average, therefore he should be in the team or not in the team, right? Like, for example, if you're really looking for an example, one of the examples is Hardik Pandya. But around 2020, his average was 7 in T20 cricket for India. He never had a 50 in Indian team, but he was a great talent, right? And now he's the champion in IPL as a captain, and now he's leading India into T20 games, right? So we cannot just pick one number and leave out and miss out on the context. So we are going to provide increased number of statistical analysis going forward. That might be the change. Yeah, apart from that, we have a few things to discuss today. Yeah, Surya, please take over there.
Yep. So, our agenda for today is number one topic is experiments. What are the experiments that we are looking or want in the Indian cricket leading up to the World Cup that would lead a success? And we really want a World Cup, and it is in India, so we want to make sure we do all our experiments, and we are gonna winning the trophy this time, not a semi-final or a final knockout. And then the number two topic is the importance of wins in the bilaterals or the series or the tournaments leading up to the World Cup. So how up to what extent we pressurize on this, and then the schedules of the players and the workload management, and also um, the changes coming soon in the Indian cricket with the league, the Premier Leagues are taking over the cricket uh, lately a lot more than expected. So let's get into our first topic, the experiments. So we always want our team to do the experiments before the World Cup games, and we expect that to do. And whenever there is a bilateral leading up to the World Cup, we expect our team to do the bowling changes or the batting combinations or the check the all-rounder positions and find the player who is more suitable to those conditions, and we solidify those places. So as usual, we expected a lot of experiments in our previous episode leading up to this World Cup. This is one of those series against Australia, and unfortunately we didn't see a lot of changes as expected. For example,
Yes.
we wanted the Umran Malik to be experimented, and we wanted him to be uh, developing that confidence in with a lot of experience under his sleeve, but we haven't seen him yet, and I don't think we will see him in the last ODI as well, because now the series is in 1-1. um,
Yeah.
and then there are a couple of other things. What are your views, Vatsal?
I think the last point you mentioned is a problem area, uh, which is okay. So I have a lot more to say. You know that. Let me start with few topics, and then we'll dig deeper in each of them and provide details. So first is, for example, the mindset such a way that because it's a must-win game. Why it's a must-win game? I could not fathom about that. I couldn't fathom that. Not about that. I couldn't fathom that. Why? There is a reason behind that. Why do you need to win the bilateral series? The importance of bilateral series. Do you really want to make it 2-1? Like, for example, Indian team has been successful across format in the last 5 to 6 years. Now, exceptional performances
At
from
home.
Indian team. Okay, not player, team performances, and yet we don't have any trophy. It's been almost 9 to 10 years plus, right? I think it's 10 plus years now. Well,
Yeah.
maybe 9 years. ICC Champions Trophy was in 2013, I guess. So yeah, so almost 9 to 10 years.
Honestly, it's
Gi-
not only home, it is also in the away tournaments to
Yes, so
point
we,
to be
we
noted.
do. Yeah, that's true. Very true. We do perform overseas. So let me tell you this. Give this picture. If you, across formats, when I say across formats, so let's take test as an example. Test format as an example. India was number one team in the last WTC cycle. India is number two team in this WTC cycle. Now, when you compare those two things, what you see is we have been exceptional not just at home. We have been winning more than any other team, better than performing better than other teams. For example, our bowling department, if you want to see the analysis by Jared Kimber, he has done an exceptional job. Look, check out his Substack. Shout out to Jared for doing exceptional work. Kudos to him. So that shows that Indian bowlers are class apart. And yet, what it shows is we are not able to win the WTC cycle. Sorry, WTC final last time because there are obvious errors. What are those obvious errors? Experiments. What do I mean by that? I would give this ambiguous point right now because there are so many things we can cover. There are so many loose ends here. One of the answers is we played with two spinners overseas in England. Uh, Maybe there was emotional selection policy where the players who contributed, for example, Jadeja and Ashwin, were made part of the test, uh, and therefore we
Cycle.
sacrificed the WC final. Uh, so my overall point is, it's not just related to the test; it's across format. We were the best team in 2019 ODI World Cup. Even though we were best team in the ODI World Cup, in fact, we were number one in the group stages,
Yes.
performing in all departments. And when it came to semi-final, we came short. Same goes with even though our team is the best, we're not able to overcome the knockout stage hurdles. What are the problems? Problems are we are so much focused on winning the games which have little importance. Okay, I'm not saying uh, give up competition. They have to compete. They have to express their skills. But what we need to explore is find out the best combination, find out the best platform such a way that our team is successful when it matters the most, even when the situation is very difficult. So we might need to experiment around the areas. Okay, uh, I'll mention a couple points and give it up to you. Give it to you if you have any thoughts, and we'll bounce back some of the thoughts. First is, for example, 2019 shortcoming. ODI World Cup. Now, if you see that theme continued 2019, 2020, 21, 2020, 22, when we had 2021 and 2022 were T20 World Cups. The theme was, if you see the top three player profile, we are too much focused on the player profile rather than the combinations. So, for example, Rohit Sharma, KL Rahul, Virat Kohli, all three great players. However, all three are similar profile players. What do I mean by
Anchors.
that? It not just anchors, but they accelerate over time, right? Their growth of strike rate increases as their innings progress. Almost all have same approach. You can have variety of approaches. For example, left-hander. For example, someone who is explosive, such as Prithvi Shaw, Virendra Sehwag,
Exactly.
or you can try Sikhar Dhawan, Ishan Kishan. Obviously, not everybody's performances are going to be same. We should not be expecting everybody's averages to be same or higher. Uh, if somebody's strike rate is high, like for example, Surya Kumar's strike rate has been higher in T20, his averages would not be as good as Virat Kohli because there is a difference. There is a trade off. If somebody is trying to play at a very high strike rate, you would trade off the average. Okay, so
Average, yeah.
these are the combinations. What we mean is we need to try almost more of these combinations. Forget about the winning, forget about the player statistics, forget about the bilateral series statistics, but make sure that we can overcome the knockout games in the tournaments. Last point for this, what I mentioned. If you see Australian team before the World Cup, I think the World Cup 2019 World Cup, ODI World Cup. They were not doing good, but suddenly most of their players come in form. I
Yeah.
remember the example of Steve Smith. Similarly, in 2006, 15 World Cup, ODI World Cup, Australian team was not as good in 2014 and leading up to the World Cup, but they gained form just before the World Cup because they experimented a lot, brought up a team, and almost all those players started performing even better than what they were performing before in the World Cup, right? So there is a difference. So if you, what it means, Bumrah and Bhuvneshwar Kumar pair in tandem is a different pair than Bumrah and Chahal. Okay, there is a difference. They would tell players know that, coaches know that, but there are things we can do about that. Yeah,
Well, honestly, to add your point, last two World Cups, like the ODI World Cup cycles, we were the best teams in the league stage. 2015, we won all the games, and we were picking 10 wickets in each and every game. And in the semi-final, we kind of gave it away, or we succumbed to the pressure. And also, the same thing happened in the 2019 ODI World Cup as well. We were the table toppers, round robin format, and then in the semi-final we lost. So I don't want that to be happen again. We really want to do a lot of experiments. The problem here is we are missing that match winner in a knockout game, that X factor player in the knockout game. And we still have the same pattern, all the righties on the top, top three or top four, and we do not have a lefty. We do not have an X factor bowler. Of course, Jasprit Bumrah is exceptional, uh, but we need a speedster like Umran Malik, which we mentioned in last episode as well. We wanted him to be experimented in build up to the World Cup. Unfortunately, we haven't seen him yet, and experimenting the players' positions in a different roles. Maybe send them up the order or send them down the order to you know increase the strike rate or the run rate of the team, that we are not doing so far. This is what, like the bilaterals, we are not concerned even though we lose. We want to make sure that we are learning something from that, we are experimenting something from that, especially before the World Cup. And the World Cup is in India, and we really uh, don't want a knockout, uh, the loss.
yeah. I have slightly different thoughts than you. The differentiating aspect I would say is the yes, we want experiments. However, I think there has been a repetitive mistake here, which is focusing on player, looking for that X factor player, looking for that X factor player in bowling, batting, etc. What is my point here? Point is, if you think about combinations, which I've just touched upon, we would see that this is more about the cultural Indian aspect rather than the requirement of the team. Okay, what do I mean by that? The reason here is we have to go for combinations and be ruthless to the players. We cannot select a team based on a player and the brand or whatever it might be. Uh, we have to find out the best combination before the World Cup and then back those players who are really able to perform and are in fact complementary to each other, right? Some of the examples, uh, for example, if you take the current Indian team which played ODI two against Australia team on 18th of March, if you see the batting order when Surya Kumar Yadav is not performing, This is the point to show to viewers or anybody who's listening. We are not just going against players. We are trying to find the best combinations, and combinations can also come in different forms from the existing players. So, for example, instead of Surya Kumar coming at four, imagine that we have top six players, starting with Rohit Sharma, Subman Gill, Virat Kohli, Sky, KL Rahul, and Hardik Pandya. Top six players are all right-handed batsmen. What can you do? You can take some of the you can what other combination experiments we can do. One of the combination experiments I would say is send Hardik Pandya at number four. He did exceptionally well for Gujarat Titans. uh, he knows how to restrict, and we also see that when he's trying to progress over the innings, his strike rates also would be helpful towards the end of the innings, so he would be able to finish those games. Second is send after Hardik Pandya, send Jadeja, right? Number five. Whenever we see in data analysis, I think that this data analysis from Gerard Kimber we mentioned, whenever Jadeja has come on number six or number five, he has in fact performed slightly better. Okay, so send Jadeja a little up at number five. So now you're introducing left-hander, and then push Surya Kumar Yadav to number six because he's explosive batsman. If he goes and plays at 150 strike rate, score 20 runs, 30 runs, 40 runs, doesn't matter because you don't have a long rope. You don't have a long road. So in those few overs, in last death overs, you want somebody to be very explosive. So these are the combination experiments I'm saying. Players also could be the same. We are not trying to target one player or the other. What we are trying to see is we have to overcome player perspectives. We cannot just be focused on this is quote Rohit, unquote Rohit, right? It's very difficult if you just focus on the player perspective. I think for India to be the team such as USA is in basketball, what do I mean by that is whenever US doesn't win the gold medal at Olympics in basketball, it's a big upset. Same way, India needs to. Why am I saying this? India has the best resources,
Yes.
richest board, very big population, and almost so many more players. It's almost 10 times or 20 times than any other country who are playing professional cricket. Okay. So if you have this resources, wealth, and talent available at your doorstep, you should be maximizing to the win, right? Not winning the World Cup should be a letdown, should be one of the biggest upsets.
Right.
However, we don't have that mentality yet. We are not thinking that way. What we think is, oh, when at some point we would win, we won in the past, these are the winners. We need heroic performances, and I'm against heroic performance. I'm not in favor of creating larger than life characters. I know that players are competent people. They put their life work, sweat and blood into competing against each other. They deserve props. It's not being against them. It's being against the hypothesizing that they are the god or semi god or something that nobody can say anything against. Rather, work for the combinations, go into the tournament where the best combinations play and try winning those knockout games because now you might have closed all the loop ends, loose ends, such a way that you lose. Like, for example, one of the loose ends is 10 minutes of bad cricket, right? It's quote
Yeah.
10 minutes of bad cricket, unquote.
Don't want
So,
that. See, this is what we have been listening for a while. It's been since 2017 Champions Trophy. Ours is the best team in the tournament. We just had 10 minutes of bad cricket, or it is just one odd day that our team didn't perform, or it is just one odd day of the below par performance. Uh, it's not like that. When your mistake is keep on repeating on a regular basis, there is something wrong. There are things that you need to change, especially in the major leagues. We want to win the World Cup, not the bilateral series. Dot. So also, if you look at the 2022 T20 World Cup as well, before after 2021 World Cup loss, 2021 T20 World Cup loss, India has been winning exceptionally, like the numbers has been high in all the bilateral series leading up to the 2022 T20 World Cup, and we lost in a semi-final in a really bad way. Like we scored 160 something for the loss of 8 wickets or something, and then they just won by 10 wickets easily. So you see a lot of difference in the performance when it comes to the knockout, and when it comes to the bilateral or the league games in a tournament, India is like doing great performances. uh, the win margin, or the way that we are winning the games, everything seems so comfortable. Everybody expects India is going to win this tournament, and then when it goes to the knockout games, we are we are losing very badly without a competition sometimes. That really uh, you know making the people a lot of disappointment. So anyway, in this ODI series, the changes that I expected was trying a left arm quick, because I always wanted India to have that left right combinations in bowling and batting. So trying a left arm quick. Right now in our ODI squad, we had Jaydev Unadkat. I don't know what happened to Arshdeep. He's not part of the squad. They still didn't consider him for the ODI series. But we really need to develop that left arm quick as our, a different combination, or the X factor combination. And the top order, bringing up the top order with a lefty. uh, Try Ishan Kishan, help, ask him to go on an aggressive innings, go for a quick fire 30 or 40 somehow. And of course, I don't want to sacrifice Gill's position, but he's doing great. But we don't want all the righties on the top. You see, if there is an Australia or an England, they always have the left right combinations. No matter what, they try to send a lefty opener at the top. They try to have a left arm quick on the bowling. uh, so that's where they are winning the major tournaments more than us. And then the England has been exceptionally well. They have developed as a team since the 2015 ODI World Cup loss. After the ODI World Cup exit in the 2015, they literally took it as a serious thing to build their ODI squad, the white ball squad, very well, and they tried different combinations, and you are seeing the results after 4 years. 2019 they won, and then 2022 T20 World Cup they won. So you have the examples, and you're the richest board. You have the big number of players. You have the world's best Premier League, but you're still lacking to get this talent, some experience, or the confidence, and find you're still lacking to find a way to make changes, because you're just sticking to the same player profile template, as you mentioned, Vatsal. So I don't know. I'm still hoping there would be some changes in the next game, but right now the series 1-1. So I don't know whether they uh, take that risk of making changes in the next game.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure myself that that experimentation mindset exists in the Indian team or not. Okay, so what I'm alluding into. So, for example, you mentioned about the English team performances. They won in 2019. They won in 2022. And now recently they hired the quick quiz analyst Freddie Will. Uh, I think he has been exceptional at quick quiz. He did exceptional job, and now he's working with England team. Okay, so we touched on the experimentation. I'll circle back to the topic of hiring an analyst, some of the best analysts, not just an analyst, right? Which improve the team's performance farther away than what's possible. So let's see this. In my perspective, this is my opinion, but there so there are few things which are subjective. For example, humor, music, etc. Right, and there are things which are objective. Maybe there are technical truths. Even though there is 97% telling something, still could be wrong because there are technical truths. Objectively, we cannot say because it's a sport which team is better all the time. What we can measure is what we have in terms of points, strike rates, NRR, etc. What is all this? What I'm trying to say? Cricket has strategies. Cricket has tactics. Cricket has um, high number of stats available. For example, amount of attributes in a game. Okay, if I get into this rabbit hole, let me give you this idea. Most of the sports we see, for example, soccer. I have played soccer. I have I love soccer. Okay, but I love soccer playing more. That's a subjective opinion. I love soccer playing more than watching because the reason is there's only one metric and timer, right? At some point, somebody would score, and then there would be timer running on. There are only few moments in the game in 90 minutes plus sometime that there would be enjoyment. Whereas the cricket is sort of the game where there are multiple metrics, multiple attributes, runs, wickets, overs, and if you dig deeper, you would have
Field.
required run rate in the second innings, target. So these are the attributes you have, which keeps you engaged. So as a viewer, I like more. I find cricket more entertaining. Again, could be subjective, but if you see the amount of measurable metrics, these are the measurable metrics in comparison to soccer. Similarly, if you see other sports, okay, that's a separate story. We can someday go into it if somebody comes back with some of the questions or points out some feedback that we need to discuss some length conversation on that. What I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to say is, if you see cricket, Test cricket, I think especially one of the format where there are highest number of strategies. Even by a bowler, they would create and prepare strategies. How many balls, how to set up a batsman. There are highest number of tactics. And this sort of requires analysis. In the first episode I mentioned, I think there was a conversation where we said, look guys, ex-cricketers would know more about the skills. We are not ex-cricketers. So we should not be speaking a lot more on the skills because they are expert on that. They have played at the highest level. They know the uh, ins and outs of those cricketing, especially at the skill level. But from the analysis perspective, we have seen the ex-cricketers also making mistakes. There are varieties of cases. If you take all the ex-cricketer commentaries, most of the time they are off to what's happening on the ground. Most of the time they are not objective, or forget about the objectivity. Just think about having the ability to at least express what's happening on the ground. That's also missing. Okay, so that's where the analysis, that's where the statistical analysis comes in. I admire England cricket for one thing that uh, so why I admire, let me give you background on that, because this is before making a claim, I want to say why. The reason behind that is experiment is one part where we develop the mentality, where we develop the culture, right? This team wins multiple tournament because not because 11 players are great players. When you know top three teams, England, India, Australia, the skill gap is not that big overall. They are playing for them, playing since they were young, right? So they have enough experience, their skills are developed more. The differentiating aspects between these teams are crucial moments, who win those crucial moments, those tactics, those strategies, those small moments, holding your ground. These are strategies, these are tactics, and even more about that, these are mentality aspects, right? You have to have the mindset that if your team loses a knockout, that's an upset. You need to win this, you can win this, and you should win this. We see this Australian women's team, right? They've been nailing down World Cup after World Cup. Uh, the last defeat of their in knockout was very far back. So that means that okay, maybe I shouldn't make that point because the skill gap is there. And in the men's side, there is less skill gap. So when there is skill gap is less, what you can work on is mentality. What you can work on is culture. Develop that culture, develop that mentality. How do you do that? There are ways in which you can find. Why do I now? Let me circle back to the England point. They brought an analyst, a top-notch analyst, which helps them win into those crucial moments. So if you see Josh Butler, if you see England coach, they all have a conversation with the analysts. Why? Because it helps them winning into those crucial moments. They are well prepared. The planning is better. Strategies are better. Tactics are refined. Whereas depending on intuitions and emotions, intuitions are not always wrong as far as it's regarding people, but emotions, I think, is a negative aspect. We might need to read Dr. Daniel Kahneman's book, Rule Based Thinking. If you know, if that's a very good book, highly recommend that one. So we need to take the emotion out of the decision making, and I hope that with the experiments we would start un- uncovering all those aspects, that what's working, what's not, what is good for our team, what are the areas in which it's going to help us long term. Not just that, for example, winning this bilateral series. We should not be focused on winning 2-1 against Australia. It does have value from the competence perspective, competition perspective, but it doesn't have value. Uh, Even though it has value, okay, we can't go always, never, nothing. So, say for example, the value compared to the World Cup is very less, right? So there
Right.
is a relative aspect.
I remember Australia losing the bilateral series against India before the World Cup within their home, but then they won the tournament, they won the World Cup later on. So, simple things. They were looking at the bigger picture. They're more focused on the winning the major tournament than the bilateral. So,
Yeah, no, very, very, very true. So that's a good point. That's the importance of wins, right? Why are we prioritized? So that goes it back to the okay. So we mentioned mentality, we mentioned culture. This all improves if we experiment a lot. If we don't
right.
experiment, we never going to find out the answers. Okay, then what happens is Einstein's definition of, if you keep doing the same thing again and again and expect different results, that's insanity. That's what we're doing in last 10 years at least. Keep doing the same thing again and again, Rohit, Kale, Kohli, and expect different results. We haven't learned that. I wonder, even before that, we are seeing right now, forget about the next World Cup, we are seeing right now right-handed batsman Mitchell Stark, last two games,
Left arm quick.
left arm quick. Okay,
Yeah.
so
It's
this
a
is
known formula. It's a known template. Whenever you face the Indian cricket team, no matter what, you have an experienced left arm quick or an inexperienced or a debutant. Just bring them in. It is a known formula to face the Indian cricket. Bring the left arm quick, and then you see the results. And we don't want that. Yeah,
and so the thing is, if we know this, highest level cricketer know that too, right?
exactly.
They know that too. Uh, if they know that, why they are not able to take decisions? Because they are focused on players. How can you push Virat Kohli down, or how can you put KL Rahul down the order? But now, thankfully, KL Rahul is down the order.
Yeah.
But the replacement is Gill,
Again,
is a the righty batsman. So if he's a right hand batsman, I think his profile is very close to Rohit Sharma. Okay. So I'm expecting experiments. I think I'm wishful for it. This is wishful thinking. This is not objective thinking here. This is a wish and hope. Okay. I'm wishing and I'm hoping that we would try experiments before the World Cup. And I'm not against or for any player. I'm not trying to think
yes,
from the player name perspective. They are amazing players. They're playing for India. That means they are top notch, right? Only top 1% of 1% of 1% can play that. So if you're at that level, you're already exceptional. You are fantastic. All props and kudos to you. However, for India team to win, they should not be thinking from the brand name, from the player name. They have to think from the combinations. I think this is a repetitive point, but I need to make this because it doesn't exist outside in the mainstream. So hopefully this uh, is a good conversation to have for those who are interested in learning on what can happen. There are multiple examples. If you see Mumbai Indians performances, if you see CSK performances, these are the league-based performances. Okay, when Mumbai Indians does not perform well, what they do usually whenever they have won the first 4 or 5 games, they have struggled. It's not that they late starting. Obviously, as players, they want to win. What's happening is they trying to figure out few things, and once they start winning, they stick with that. So you have to experiment. So if Rohit is doing that with I think he needs that staff or he needs that support from the analysis perspective to do that for India. Maybe it's inputs. Maybe there are analysis analysts who are providing him those inputs.
And honestly,
Similar,
this is something that we expected from Rohit's captaincy.
yeah,
This is one change that we expected. Like he keep experimenting in the less important games, and when it comes to the more important games, he have his combinations ready and he'll go. I mean, when he has experience with the Mumbai, that's what we expected. But so far, we haven't seen much results there. Go ahead.
yeah, no, so that's excellent point. Yeah, so we're expecting that. So these are the vision, hope. This is again as of just trying to put a thought out. If it starts a conversation, good for everybody. Again, not against anybody. So now, having said that, to the next point, what players offer to the side, right? I think in the first or second episode we mentioned this. We select bowlers, not in the WTC final. There was an exception, but there are a few exceptions. However, we select bowlers based on how the pitch is when we go South Africa, when we go England, when we go Australia. But we suddenly start selecting batsmen regardless of the pitch. For example, Ajinkya Rahane doesn't perform good in India, but he plays. For example, KL Rahul. On the contrary, who doesn't perform outside still plays. There are a few exceptions such as Shikhar Dhawan and Murli Vijay. But apart from that, we don't see that many exceptions. So I think we don't have rule-based strategy, even inside the team 11. And even inside the team 11, the departments, right? For example, batting and bowling. We don't treat batting similarly the way we treat bowling. Uh, Ashwin or Jadeja, one of them plays overseas,
Yeah,
unless we start taking emotional decisions and play both of them, such as WTC final. Uh, but overseas, we don't take emotional decisions for bowlers, but suddenly we start taking emotional decisions for batsmen. This is what happened. We saw that he, he heated up conversation between Venkatesh Prasad and Akash Chopra. I'm in Team Venkatesh Prasad because he's not going against K. Rahul as a person. He's going against K. Rahul from the
absolutely.
uh, performances. Okay, so he's a player needs to deliver. It's not about the person. He's not decoding him as a person. There's nothing ill about that. So this brings to the point of combinations, summary highlights, combination. Try those. Do not treat players uh, as bad people if they've been dropped. They are just players. They're doing the best they can. However, at the same time, we need to move away from the names and focus just on the combinations and prioritize team winning in any situation. So that I think rule-based situations. Okay, I want to dig deeper on the rule-based, but before that, keep going.
Well, the point here is what you mentioned. I agree with that. Like the rule based strategy, uh, that will bring up into a wider picture of winning the games in the major tournaments is more important than winning the games in the bilaterals. So we are actually pretty much covering both the topics simultaneously so far. One is the experiments, and the other one is the importance of wins.
Of
Just to
winning,
let you
yes.
guys know. So yeah, back to you.
Okay, uh, I briefly mentioned Dr. Daniel Kahneman's book. Uh, the name of the book is Thinking Fast and Slow. Okay, in which he explains eloquently regarding the rule-based approach towards decision making and reducing the emotions. He has served in Israeli military. Not just that, he won the Nobel Prize for that, and he's a Nobel laureate. Rule-based system is important. There are a couple reasons. I'll portray that and see, and we'll assess why. Okay. My point. This has been one of the. I've been long-term promoter of this. We have discussed this in the group. I haven't seen opposition from anybody on these ideas, but I would like to see if there are any rebounding thoughts or feedback. The first thing is, if we taking decisions arbitrarily, okay, for example, who are selected? Who selects? Selectors. We saw a big case with Chetan Sharma. We don't have proper selection procedure. Okay. Then after squad is selected, who plays in the team? Team management, coach, captain, and maybe a couple more senior players if they include, or just it's coach and captain, depending on how the captain is, how he's handling the dressing room, etc. Now, if you see entirety of this process, what's happening is players who are practicing, players who are preparing to end up in Indian cricket team have no clarity. There is lack of transparency. We see this in engineering, we see this in technology and innovation. Let me give you very quick background. We don't have that much time, so I'll be very quick on that. Open sourcing of software, why it's helpful? It helps communities to develop tools faster. People understands what's happening behind the scenes. It develops building trust. If you have enough trust, you can focus on the things you want to focus on, and everybody gets credit for the work they do, and it's visible to anybody else. Okay, so what happened in 2015? You can go back and see. This is the premise of entire blockchain, but not just a blockchain. Open sourcing. What is open sourcing? GitHub, right? Git. You open source it. Open sourcing means make it visible to anybody and everybody. Why it's important? Transparency. Transparency leads to trust. If you have trust, your performances are better, and therefore, if the performances are better, results are better. What I'm trying to say here for the selection procedure, if we do not have, so now let me combine these 2 points: rule-based system and open sourcing transparency. If you create the rules, if you create the policy, this upon which we are going to select pace bowlers, upon these rules we are going to select uh, batsmen, upon this we are going to select spinners, right? For example, one of the rules which is good direction, I think props to Kohli on this. What is that? Yo-yo test, right? Kohli or Dhoni, I'm not quite sure on that who brought this one, but props to any one of them who brought it. Yo-yo test. Now that makes sense that players can focus on that. I have to do at least this such a way that I get selected. Okay. If you do more of those clear, transparent rules, players who are playing in domestic circuits, players who are playing in leagues, uh, short format, long format, whatever it might be, they would have an idea what they need to improve on. The clarity would be better, and therefore the skills would improve. Okay, so this is the true about the rules. I can connect it to the transparency and open source, right? It seems like you're gonna bounce back.
Yeah. So to add to your point there, about the yo-yo test or the transitions that Kohli or Dhoni has brought up into the team. When Dhoni was captaining, we clearly knew that he was focusing more on the fielding perspective. So he wanted improved fielders on the field. He wanted gun fielders. He always encouraged them. Those are the little things that actually has uh, given us a better results. uh, I mean, you cannot win all the major tournaments unless you have focused on every little thing, and also the combinations, the bowling combinations or the batting combinations that he has tried. And when it comes to the Kohli as well, he has done exceptionally well by building that mindset of fitness into the team. So once Kohli has been the captain, of course, while Dhoni was a captain, everybody was trying to be fit and trying to be fielding well. But once Kohli was a captain, we have seen a lot of highly fit or the six pack players in the team, because he himself, Kohli himself, is a captain of the team, and he led by an example. And
Yeah.
anyway, so those are the little things. Even the fielding is a very important aspect of the game. You might not be concerned a lot at this point of time with our team dropping catches, or uh, especially in those pressure games, they mean a lot, and that can create a lot of impact. And uh, the the departments that we are uh, under right now is, one is the spin department, other one is the bowling. We only have two bowlers right now, Shami and Siraj, and we want to protect them, make sure that there won't be any injuries. But you might want to develop a backup options as well, and you can only bring that up by giving them a chance in these kind of tournaments, these kind of series, bilaterals, uh, and on our top order as well. Like, this has been a template, as we mentioned before. We wanted to work on our top order. uh, yeah, I mean, uh, the point here is about, not about winning the tournaments, but about the uh, proper experiments that you do and getting the results.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So just to give a gist on what you just said, as an example, okay, think about this. Players perform in domestic circuit, for example, Shreya Share, Mayank Agarwal. After 2 years of their stellar seasons, after 2 years they had to wait to be introduced into the squad, and then from there it took time for them to be in the Indian 11. Okay. Similarly, if you see with Sarfaraz right now, who is waiting on the sidelines, not just Sarfaraz Khan, but there are multiple more. Some other examples. I mentioned Shreyas, I mentioned Mayank.
Sanju
Sarfaraz is one.
Samson,
Sanju is another example.
Jaydev
And
in the bowling.
yeah, if you see Sky also, he had great seasons in 18-19, but he got chances in 2021. Same with Ruturaj, he had great seasons in 2020, 2021, got chances in 2022, I guess, a little bit, and then again he's on the sideline. What this creates is, when the player hits a purple patch, they do that for a couple of years. They don't get selected, the motivation would reduce. uh, Anybody, it's difficult for them. Okay, again, I'm not trying to take the name. We are not trying to treat uh, that they are bad people or good people. It's not about the person. It's more about the how the mindset is affected after having two stellar seasons. Yet they are not selected, and they have to wait 2 more years to be included in the squad. And you expect them to perform and restart their purple patch. I think it's ridiculous. Okay. Um, I don't want to be harsh. I don't want to use those words. Main point I want to mention is, if there are no rules, then it's more about, it's arbitrary decisions. Okay, whatever comes to mind, what I feel, that's what Chetan Sharma did, and the way they back the players. Okay, so how do they determine who has more potential, who has more talent? It's up to the interpretations. Anybody can interpret something. If you interpret that he performed in one game, every almost all the players who are being considered for the Indian team would have a couple games which have been fabulous. So I think less rules, more fights, more disappointments, bad results in knockout games. If we have rules, at least we will be clear that these are the things need to be changed. right? For example, if you have algorithm, right? Think about the tech company. You create the rules upon which you create the algorithm. That you know what, this is the metric to measure the bowling performance. This is the metric to measure fielding performance, or how many miles run, how many catches caught, how many catches dropped, agility. You can come up with multiple attributes. Once you put that algorithm and see and assess, at the end of the day, anybody should be able to determine that which are the players are selected. This would reduce the bias towards player names, player profiles, or where the player is from, etc. Right? We want to reduce the bias towards players, and this would increase the performances of a team, because now if you select players without bias, because it's a rule-based system, it's less arbitrary. There are reasons behind which they play. There are measurable metrics that we say, you know what, this player has this much degrees of spin, had this much bounce, extracted this much spin, length were this, performed this well over these pitches. He adjusted with the length. On some pitches, he had to bowl 5 meters length, some pitches 6 meters, some pitches 4 meter. Adjustments were there. Did all this, and therefore now you select that bowler. That's a bowler should be playing for India. Has nothing to say that he's Ashwin or Sundar or Bhajan, whatever it might be, right? So that's my point. That if you create a rule-based system, and then based on those rules, you try measuring the outcomes. Once you have the metrics to measure that, you would be able to better select those players and have combinations also. You can measure combinations also, right? Spell. So why I mentioned about the spell? The other reason here is, think about this. Wickets are byproducts. You can have goal as a bowler that I want to take 5 wickets, but that's a byproduct. That's not the uh, uh, that's not a certain goal that you would achieve. Some of the goals could be like, I'm going to bowl 5 overs. Okay, that's a goal. That's certain, more certain than 5 wickets. But when you know you're going to bowl, if you do your best, what you can expect is giving less runs, putting the field such a way that batters can't score more. Having said that, if you do well and the bowler from the other end is start taking wickets, you might not get wickets because wickets are the byproduct. So bowlers should not be assessed just based on the wicket. They also have
Right.
to be assessed from the economy rate. So if the economy rate is in average, I think I would not criticize any bowler because they did their job. Like for example, in test, if any bowler's economy rate is more than 3, then they are not doing their job, right?
Right.
Depending on the pitch, or if it's a difficult pitch, then the economy rate even drops. So these are the metrics, these are the things you can measure from for the combinations. So if you think about the combination, who bowled in 10 down, how many wickets fell in that area versus what was the economy rate, what was the run rate. If you do all this analysis, I think we would be able to find out the areas in which you would find proper combinations. And those combinations would be so hard to overcome for opposition teams. To now go back to the main point we started with, England team, this is what they're going to do because they have some of the best analysts in their team. So they invested into analysts, captain, coach, and senior players would be discussing with the analysts. They would form the strategies, tactics, and find out the answers that our players would try finding from emotions or intuitions. Where things are measurable, why do we need to guess, right? That should be obvious by now.
Yeah. That kind of mindset at this point of time in the Indian cricket, I'm not expecting. But yeah, hopefully, someone gets that kind of mindset into that team. Uh, Well, so it was a great discussion, I would say, about the experiments and the importance of wins so far. But let's jump deep into the bigger topic of the cricket schedules or the workload management of the players with the major cricket leagues or the premier leagues taking over the cricket right now.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, There might be a longer conversation. I have so many points on that, so maybe next time. But at the same time, let me give you a brief, quick conversation, but we will elaborate that into the next one if we need to.
Yeah, that
Okay.
would make sense.
Yeah, a couple of brief points here. The first is if you see uh, the schedule time, right? No, no, not even the schedule. Let me pull that tweet. Uh, do we have footnote on this?
Yes. Uh, yes.
Okay, let me put this in the footnote. Some of the things I mentioned, some of the things I said, would be much better if we put footnote on that. Okay, okay, here we go. Footnote. This is message.
So you have the chat and the footnote option there.
I just see the chat option. I'm just texting. Let's see where did it come. It came in the chat box. If you
Yeah,
see
it can.
footnote, can you put
Yeah.
that into?
Let me
Okay.
post it in the footnotes.
Yeah. So this tweet shows ICC's revenue around 70% has been from India. It could go beyond 80 to 85 after Disney Star bid. Now, why I mentioned that this might not be enough time for us today is because there are multiple tangents. Understanding of everybody is different, and everybody wishes something else, right? For example, many of them want cricket to be played in 100 countries. Many of them want 30 team World Cup. Everybody's intuitions are different. Everybody's expectations are different. I have a few things to say about that. What is the point here? I would say if BCCI is having this huge revenue, uh, we should expand the IPL window. What is the reason? We need to move away from the bilateral series. They are just friendlies, right? If you see soccer, if you see any other sport, they're just friendlies. You play with other team to find out and refine your combinations, refine and do experiments leading up to a big tournament. Okay. If there is a World Cup, have 2 or 3 weeks before the World Cup where you do and arrange friendlies, work out your combinations and go to the tournament. But until then, most of these bilateral series are sort of waste of the time, waste of time. Why? Because at the end of the day, there is a Paytm series or Master
Mastercard.
Mastercard series. Uh, the reason behind that is there are two, three, four, 5 games. Usually it's odd number, right? So 3, 5, 7. So there are 3, 4 games, 5 games, 7 games. When you have few games which matters nothing but statistics for players, there is no long form tournament where there's context, right? This was a conversation. That's why we have WTC cycle now. Because why we keep playing bilateral test series when we can have contextual series where somebody wins a trophy at the end and there is a final for that. That makes sense because there is a context, there is a tournament structure. If we want to improve the product of cricket, I think we need to create longer league formats which have longer tournaments, right? For example, IPL needs to increase their window ASAP, 3 to 4 months or even higher. We can learn from NFL, we can learn from NBA, we can learn from English Premier League, we can learn from UEFA Champions League, whatever it might be. There are so many leagues in the world. Or we can bring our new things, new points into the cricket league. IPL needs to expand. Why? Because it's the best cricketing product. It could be the best sports league in the world, given the market opportunity in India. If this is the potential of a league, carving up a bigger window and reducing the unimportant non-contextual games is in benefit is going to benefit BCCI players and fans. It would generate more interest. Fans would be interested because if you see the measurable technique, India versus Australia ODI series versus IPL, right? There are measurable differences. If you, I think let me pull my text from our group where I mentioned uh, we can mention the interest of players based on few things. Let me jump. I think we talk a lot on the group.
Yeah. So the point that you mentioned there was like
Yeah.
the tickets
How
were
fast?
sold out for the
Yeah.
first IPL game there, whereas in the current ODI series, uh, those were
Yeah.
not sold out.
Yeah, how fast tickets are sold out. That's a
Yeah,
measurable fact. You can measure that. Second is how much money were charged, right? For
yeah,
example, the money charged for one ticket overall, you forget about the one ticket. You can think about overall revenue generated from the ticket sale in IPL game versus ODI game is higher in IPL. Third, traction and interest. You can see that you can measure that by impressions and clicks on social networks, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. So if you see all this interest based on impression clicks, you see the higher interest based on uh, impression clicks, but you also see the amount people are paying for a ticket in IPL, how fast it was sold out. All these metrics are measurable because there is a tournament, there is a context behind this. So I think there's a lot more to say, but I'll try wrapping up here. Maybe we try this longer conversation next time on this.
yeah. Probably this is just a trailer about that. Uh, we're gonna extend more on our next conversation. But yeah, when you bring up about the Test cricket and the WTC cycle, I wanted to make a point there. So since the introduction of the WTC cycle, we have seen tremendous changes and the interest levels improved a lot in the test cricket rather than just a bilateral test series test tournaments. Earlier it was a whole different scenario, but with the major cricket leagues into the competition, so ICC themselves, they introduced this test tournament cycle, and they wanted to make sure that teams are competing for the wins rather than they're just doing a draw or it's a dry game. So that actually has created a lot of changes in the test cricket, and a lot of historic wins, which we have seen, like the big chases or in the fourth innings, team scoring 100 in the first innings but they scored 400 to chase it down in the fourth innings. And there were like just in a span of 4 to 5 years, test cricket has hit like the peak peaks the new peaks, I would say. In the similar way, we also notice with this test cycle introduction, the bilateral series has been reduced. The number of bilateral series played um between the different countries has been reduced, and even though they play, it's hardly a 5 match series or a 7 match series unless it is in the Pakistan. But so far we have played like 3 match ODI series or the 5 match ODI series at the most, and the T20 tournaments has been becoming bigger, like the 5 match T20 series or the 7 match T20 series, and the ODI series are becoming like the 3 match ODI series. If you remember, India versus Australia back in I don't remember that year. I guess it was back in 2009 or something. We played 7 match ODI series. It was like a cracker of the series, and then later in the 2013-14 it was 5 match ODI series, but now it is just 3 match ODI series.
Yeah.
So more often than now we are seeing like the 3 match bilateral series, just to, and you have the sample size as well less to
Yeah,
do those experiments.
think even though it's a ODI World Cup year.
Yeah, even though there is an ODI World Cup that is coming up, that's a bigger point. So again, we are going back to our discussion topic in this episode, which we mentioned is the experiments and the importance of the wins. So the room for you to do the experiments is very less at this point of time, and you are still not making it. That is insane. So we hope our team realize that and do a lot and lot more experiments in coming up ODI tournaments. I don't expect any changes in our ODI team for the next third ODI. I believe it should be the same team, that we continue with the same squad and try to win 2-1. If not, that is still okay. You know what are the mistakes that you have done, and move on and try to do more changes in the next bilateral series.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds good. Pretty, I think this was a pretty good conversation today.
Yeah, it was a very good and something new that we are expecting from the Indian cricket, and
Yeah,
hopefully that happens uh, sooner than later
yes,
to
absolutely.
produce the results in the World Cups.
Yeah, there's so many random ideas thrown which are very different than mainstream. So we can expect and hope. I think we can improve uh, the points discussed overall in the Indian cricket conversation circles. That's what we can hope right now. I might not be having the expectation that this would directly reach to the Indian cricket. That's far away. It's very difficult to change uh, from farther away than the dressing room. It is difficult for the people who are themselves inside the dressing room. So
Yeah,
at
this
least
is
what we
just
can
a
expect is,
fan's
yeah,
perspective.
conversation. Yeah, yeah.
All right,
Okay.
sounds good. And we'll be back soon in our next episode. And
Yeah.
any guesses for the ODI series right now? How it went?
In the earlier prediction, it was 2-1, right? So I'll stick with that.
You said 2-1 India, and I also predicted 2-1 India. But looking at our batting and with the left arm quick right now, how the way he troubled in those two ODIs, I'm more inclined towards like 2-1 Australia right now, because the way that Mishmarsh is dealing with us is
And
like he's uh, just in the next level when compared to our batters on our
maybe,
on our
maybe,
pitches.
maybe Akshar for opening. That's just kidding, guys.
All right.
Not a big point.
Well, all right. Nice
Okay.
conversation,
Yeah.
and we'll be back soon. Thank you,
Yeah.
guys. If you happen to know, please check out our previous episodes. We are a group of people from the Wichita State University recording this underarm cricket podcast to express our views about the Indian cricket and a fan's perspective and little bit of analysis that we are trying to introduce moving forward. So we'll keep you guys posted. Thank you and have a good one. Bye.
Yeah. See ya.